It's tempting to think of marriage as old-fashioned. Why not just live with someone and be done with it?
Hello, gentlemen. Occasionally I will be sent by a subscriber or a viewer a video that attempts to make an intelligent case for a stance that I disagree with. I actually enjoy and appreciate these videos the most.
What need for a public ceremony? Why the weird traditions, all those churches, temples, hymns, vows and prayers? Marriage must be a silly relic from the religious childhood of humankind, not designed for the more logical modern world. And yet, it survives. The essence of marriage is to tie our hands, to frustrate our wills, to put high and costly obstacles in the way of splitting up.
The financial obstacles that you're referencing here are mainly arrayed towards men, but you do make a fair point. There are women out there who make more than their husbands, and then they stand to lose money in a divorce settlement, so they do exist. So I think it's an interesting opener. I'm intrigued. Let's proceed and see where the interlocutor takes us.
Why do we do this? Originally, we told ourselves that God wanted us to stay married, but even now, when God is not invoked, we keep making sure that marriage is rather hard to undo. For one thing, you carefully invite everyone you know to watch you say you'll stick together. You willingly create a huge layer of embarrassment were you ever to turn around and admit it might have been a mistake.
A lot of people in this society go to weddings and place bets about how long it's going to last. I think most of the social stress we're talking about here is very self-imposed. The society highly values I guess you could call it like the narcissism of subjective experience. I don't think anyone really gives a shit when someone else gets divorced except for their like close loved ones and good friends, maybe a few family members, and then they don't really like ridicule those people often, I find. They're just going to be compassionate toward them and be like, "Oh, that sucks, bro." So again, it's very much I think it's very much a self-imposed social stress that you're referencing here.
Furthermore, even though you could keep things separate, marriage tends to mean deep economic and legal entanglements. You know it's going to take the work of a phalanx of accountants and lawyers to prise you apart. It could be done, but it will be ruinous.
It will be ruinous to the person who makes the most money. In a traditional nuclear family, where the father protects and provides and exists as a male utility for his wife and children, it's highly ruinous for the man for two reasons, because he spent all of his time working. The wife spent that time with the kids. The kids probably trust the wife. The wife is raising the kids with who knows what messages. And so in the event of a divorce, the wife may win double. She might get half this man's money and also custody of the children. So we begin to notice the unevenness of this barrier to exit that you're referencing here.
It's as if we somewhere recognize that there might, rather strangely, be some quite good, though uncomfortable reasons why making it difficult to split up a union can be an advantage for its members. The marshmallow test was a celebrated experiment in the history of psychology, designed to measure children's ability to delay gratification and track the consequences of being able to think long-term. Some 3-year-old children were offered a marshmallow, but told they would get 2 if they held off from eating the first one for 5 minutes. It turned out a lot of children just couldn't make it through this period. It was too tempting. The less immediate benefit of gobbling the marshmallow in front of them was stronger than the strategy of waiting. Crucially, it was observed that these children went on to have lives blighted by a lack of impulse control, and fared much worse than the children who were best at subordinating immediate fun for long-term benefit.
All that matters is that it's clear, and I think most people will agree with this, that most people have bad impulse control. You don't need marshmallows to demonstrate that. But here's the most important part of his insinuation. It is clear at this point that he is going to attempt to demonstrate that marriage is a mechanism by which people are disincentivized to give in to their impulses and pushed instead towards staying together. He is thereby insinuating that breaking up with someone else is like grabbing a marshmallow now, and the barrier of divorce shepherds people toward having their metaphorical 2 marshmallows later. Now this is where the speaker's line of reasoning takes a draconian turn, and the onus is going to be on the speaker to prove that staying in a marriage equates to the 2 marshmallows instead of the 1, equates to a reward commensurate with the level of self-discipline requisite to overcome one's base impulse.
Relationships are perhaps no different. Here too, many things feel very urgent. We're angry and want to get out. We're excited by a new person and need to abandon our present partner at once. And yet, as we look around for the exit, every way seems blocked. It would cost a fortune. It would be embarrassing. It would take an age. This isn't a coincidence. Marriage is a giant inhibitor of impulse, set up by our conscience to keep our libidinous, ungrateful, wild, desiring selves in check.
Most people are too retarded to control their impulses, so we must essentially force them using soft power to elect to enter into and stay in the traditional marriage contract, because then they will be electroshocked if they realize how stupid it was to impulsively tie the knot in the first place. This is a great way to legally curtail people's personal sense of freedom and keep society producing babies, buying products, and fueling capitalism. What, you say that both people in the marriage are fucking miserable? Who gives a shit?
At this point, I am actively questioning the motives of the speaker for this video. But hey, if he can make it 100% clear to me that staying in a marriage is worth all the bullshit, that it is vindicated through some sort of reward mechanism equal to 2 marshmallows instead of 1, then we can talk. Then I can say, okay, well, that's been an interesting video. He's made some interesting points and we can talk about it. But let's see if he makes that point.
What we're essentially buying into by submitting to its dictates is the insight that we are, as individuals, likely to make very poor choices under the sway of strong short-term impulses. To marry is to recognize that we require structure to insulate us from our urges. It's to lock ourselves up willingly because we don't trust ourselves. It's a very unusual marriage indeed, in which the two people don't spend a notable amount of time fantasizing that they weren't in fact married. But the point of marriage is to make these feelings not matter very much. It's an arrangement that protects us from what we desire, and yet know, in our more reasonable moments, we don't truly need or even perhaps want. At their best, relationships involve us in attempts to develop, mature, and become whole. We often get drawn to people precisely because they promise to edge us in the right directions. But it's too easy to seem kind and normal when we keep going out with someone new. The truth about us, on the basis of which self-improvement begins, only becomes clear over time.
Nothing but a barrage of vague, worn-out platitudes that are akin to a used-up whore's wizard sleeve. Here's the thing, we can develop by ourselves. We don't need someone holding our hand. In fact, I would posit that such a thing is detrimental, as it would indicate that a person derives validation externally and becomes then a slave to the opinions of others.
Chances of development increase hugely when we don't keep running away to people who will falsely reassure us there's nothing too wrong with us.
As opposed to persistently nag us about every single one of our faults, right? Because that's the logical extent of your insinuation.
Over time, the argument for marriage has shifted. It's no longer about external forces having power over us.
Marriage is an external force having power over you. By your own definition. Did you listen to this video before you published it?
What we are correctly now focused on is the psychological point of making it hard to throw it all in. For the last 50 years, the burden of intelligent effort has been on attempting to make separation easier. The challenge now lies in another direction, in trying to remind ourselves why immediate flight doesn't always make sense, in trying to see the point of holding out for the second marshmallow.
The entire video is just focused about how to curtail the human urge for freedom. But it didn't go into any depth at all about what the fuck is the incentive to get married. At all. Except for some real weird new age vagaries about wholeness. What I would like to see is a follow-up made to this video where the School of Life attempts to reason out why marriage is worth all of the terrible things that come with it, like the social and fiscal pressures and risks of divorce, all of the myriad pressures that are exerted on the participants in the marriage contract. What makes it worth it? What vindicates it? Because From this video, I didn't see jack shit. All I'm saying is you're also presupposing that these barriers to exit, that these social pressures or whatnot are going to prevent somebody from sexually cheating or cuckolding a husband or whatnot. I mean, can you be so incredibly naive? I saw a comment in the comment section saying that the entire video was just reminiscent of somebody trying to, like, ex post facto rationalize why their father left their mother or something. I don't know. It's just, I thought that this was a very, very weak argument for convincing people to get married, especially when men entering the marriage contract these days are subjecting themselves to the very real, statistically real risk of being divorced, fleeced for alimony, losing custody of their children, and then subsequently perhaps even hanging themselves from the rafters. Do you really think that it's responsible of you, School of Life, to be promulgating, to be disseminating such pro-marriage propaganda without even issuing a disclaimer of the risks? Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. Have a pleasant evening.